Alright, so today we're going to be focusing in on Sagittarius. It's a unique bow with a very cool mod effect, Starfall. And I leaned completely into it. Obviously, it's going to be pretty much all mod usage. This is actually, those are the wrong minions. We'll switch it in a moment. But we leaned in with just like mod duration, mod size, and just constantly having falling stars hitting the ground everywhere. It's very satisfying and surprisingly effective, actually, because I mean, one, it's been pretty decent for a while now. They actually updated it a while ago, where I just hadn't really like used it. I just kind of like tried it once, said, wow, yeah, it is a lot better, and then I never did like an actual good video for it. But here, now this one, I've been using it, and let me tell you, man, you can mess up some dudes with it. Go get them, minions. And even on like a bunch of bosses and stuff, it does surprisingly well. There's been quite a few world bosses I've gone through. I mean, a bunch of boss rushes with it. It just does pretty consistent DPS, and with, you know, some decent mod generation and feedback on there, I don't have any issues like constantly upkeeping it. And if you can actually have it like sitting and hitting guys, where it can actually generate that mod power by hitting guys, you are going to be able to constantly lob these things out, and you can have multiple active at a time as well. I am trying something slightly different with the setup though. I obviously have Summoner on right now. Previously I did not really use Summoner, and so I leaned a little bit more into it, and I also switched off Insight. Insight is a trait that gives you that mod power per second. So I thought that maybe if I didn't use that, but I had Burden of the Follower on for more mod generation, I would be okay. And I mean, we'll see on the boss when we can really like hit a big target multiple times. I actually needed to switch these minions earlier. That's fine though. So let's see. It'll work totally okay on this one though, because it launches and lands right there in the sky. Now, obviously, this is boss rush, so things are a little, you know, skewed as far as scaling goes. But that being said, you can absolutely use this in your just standard gameplay as well. It works just fine. There's no problems with it. It worked pretty well for me too. And some interesting things with the Starfall mod is it does count as an explosive damage type. So you could use it with the detonation trigger to deal increased damage and catch enemies on fire, and let it do some good work with that, or, you know, use it with a blasting cap, things like that, and that'll work for you. That'll do just fine. It also does not have any friendly fire, so you don't have to worry about accidentally blasting your teammates or anything like that. If you got friends who are up in the fray, like, it's good. You don't have to worry about it. So that's also really nice. And the fact that it is affected by AoE size increase, the duration and everything. Like, we have the Magnifying Glass on, which I'm sure the title or thumbnail or something will kind of key you in on that. So that's helping with that duration, helping with the mod size of it. But if you wanted to lean even longer in some of the duration and not worry too much about the size, you could go Lemire Sensor, because the Lemire Sensor is going to increase that duration by 50%. So we can end up having like a 15-second Starfall, which is a very long time. Dang it. Now, it does come with a drawback of increasing the mod cost, but for the most part, like, that's generally not an issue if you are really built into having a lot of mod power generation. Like, we have, dang it, we have Reality Rune on because I'm just kind of lazy and a sucker for it. And so our mod power generation is really decent. Like, here we go, we're gonna have multiple things active, though we do have to dodge things. So sometimes, depending on the enemy, having to dodge things will slow down how often you can put them out there. But I mean, look at how, like, once you get multiple Starfalls on the guy, it's going to absolutely shred them. It does a surprising amount of damage to guys at times, and I haven't even gone full into some of the damage because I leaned a bit more into stuff with the minions. So if you wanted to, you could really crank up the damage on the mod and watch it shred guys even more. It's pretty decent. I do really enjoy it. I guess a bad thing with the weapon too is the fact that you have to get the what do you call it? You have to get the Cathedral of Omens, which I was reading some posts from people, I feel like recently, where they're basically just like, I can't get that thing to drop or spawn at all, ever. There's a couple Yeisha ones I've seen people kind of complain or talk about not getting ever. But now we should be able to lock down a zone if anybody ever comes through. There's another mutator you could consider with it, and I think I'll do a video for it because I've been wanting to use the mutator in a video again because I like it, even though it's still not super amazing. I don't know, it's Spirit Feeder. So Spirit Feeder increases your mod damage when you reload. Because this is a bow, we're constantly reloading it, which means we can be constantly getting 30% more mod damage, and that's quite a bit of mod damage, right? However, it still just feels kind of off. I don't know. It does. There's something about it that still feels a little not quite right. Ow, that kind of hurt. Oh, he's a fairy. Boom. Come be honest too. We're fighting the Bloat King here. This, I didn't even consider fighting him. I don't know how I mean, I know how I'm going to try and do this, but I didn't even consider getting him because I think Bloat King is like the only boss that's going to be pretty difficult for this to deal with because it moves around so much. That's the one main weakness of, I would say, Starfall, is the fact that you have to have them kind of staying in place to consistently hit them. And if they're not staying in the zone of the mod, it's not going to do anything. But I'm hoping that maybe if I just kind of constantly hit the bulk of the body, maybe that can let me win. Maybe? It's not doing a lot of damage. I was curious where the portal would open up, and it kind of looks like it's opening up in the ceiling in a way, which is interesting. Boom. I mean, we're doing some decent damage, actually. I think once you can start hitting it multiple times, it actually does do... Like, look, it's actually doing reasonable, constant damage, which I like. Obviously, constant damage is just nice. Who doesn't like that? Is he dead? There we go. We won. Actually, pretty easy. Again, boss rush, you know, things are scaled. It's going to be a little not accurate, I guess. But at the same time, a lot of people do boss rush. I mean, people do boss rush a fair amount, and this will give you the basic idea. Just know if you're going to do this on Apocalypse, that the enemies, and not in boss rush, and that for that matter, the enemies are going to be a little bit more sturdy, deal more damage, so you have to actually kind of play around the mechanics of it all. Where, I mean, hopefully with our setup right here with some minions are taking some of the damage for us, and they're doing some lifesteal. If they could stop interrupting my relic, though, that would be fantastic. But they're taking some of the brunt for us, and between some regen with our regrowth trait, thanks to the summoner and Tranquil Heart, we have a decent amount of just kind of passive regen. Dang it. And the minions lifestealing stuff is always just kind of solid as well, which I'm pretty sure I actually put points in Siphoner. I did put points in Siphoner too, because the Starfall, I mean, as you've seen it hits a lot, right? All of those stars that are dropping down are pretty consistently hitting guys, so we don't really have any, like, we can get a lot of value out of the Siphoner because it can just constantly be proccing some amount of health back to us. And we've got the Root Lash, which is not a normal one for me to take. That's kind of a new choice as well. Now, I think if you really wanted to, you could do essentially the same idea of this Starfall mod with a different bow or something, and it would end up being the same thing. I mean, the thing is, though, the bow isn't even the drawing point here. It is the mod. It just happens to be on a bow. But if you were to use something like Tremor, same kind of idea, right? Throw it out there, lasts for a while, does a bunch of damage. Bad thing is, Tremor doesn't have much of a vertical hitbox, and so if you got... And it requires the ground, so when we fought Mother Mind floating in the middle of the air, Tremor's not really going to do anything. But you could also do kind of the same thing with Firestorm, but then you get the issue of Friendly Fire, which is kind of a problem. I guess you could kind of look at some of the other unique mods. And actually, I bet what's it called? The Voltaic Rondor, which is just super solid now. That would be a good choice as well. Yeah, I'm totally just going to try and get the actual Corruptor guy with Starfall. Look how much damage it's actually doing to him. No problems here. But we have to wait to shoot until we get over to this side, because otherwise we're just going to get messed up. We need to watch for that dude's jump. Minions are getting a little messed up, so I need to heal them up with our relic. And then pow. So he will probably rotate here in a moment. Maybe. There we go. Okay. Now, if you can get multiple Starfalls out, each of the hits are going to be charging up. So it'll actually, not quite exponentially, there is kind of an upper limit in a way, but by having multiple Starfalls active, it charges up faster and faster because you're hitting them more and more with multiple Starfalls. I'm going to run straight across this time, though he'll just die. So, it's good. The Starfall mod is very solid now. You know, I've leaned into just duration and size because to me, that gives it the best sort of ease of use, I guess is how I might describe it. Because a larger area size means even if enemies start moving and trying to get out of it, or maybe you didn't aim it perfectly for where they're going to be or where they're at, you're more likely to catch guys, so you're more likely to get some damage out of it. And with the duration, you can see with feedback and things, you're able to charge it up quickly or charge it up more while it's active for a long period of time, or just consistently keep doing more damage for a single cast. But you could easily just kind of rotate into a different direction and just go more damage for a single cast. So maybe it doesn't last as long, maybe it doesn't hit in a wider area, but if it's doing more damage, then you start getting a sort of, depending on how the numbers go, an equivalent thing where a higher burst damage but less DPS over a long period of time, right? Here it is. Here's the loadout. We've got the Archon, we've got Summoner, because mod stuff. The Magnifying Glass is increasing that skill, mod duration, as well as AoE aura sizes. This does also affect our reality rune, so it does hit in a much larger size, especially when we mix in amplitude. Now we've got Zoe's Ring on, another 20% on our mod duration. I put on Burden of the Follower, reduces fire rate, we don't care, increase mod duration or mod generation by 30%, so that's pretty nice. And then because I'm running the minions, Soul Link, they're life-stealing more health, they're life-stealing health for us, so it's kind of just a health upkeep type of thing. But if you are looking for some other options as far as like healing goes, the Encrypted Ring is always pretty fun. We're using the mod a pretty fair amount, and so you should be able to upkeep a lot of health regen for a long period of time, especially over the course of a boss fight. So you could do something like that, or if you're just not worried about that aspect of it, trade it out for more damage, right? Same thing here. Excuse me, I've been fighting off a sinus infection or something this past week, so it's kind of making me feel a little funky. So, and then my last ring, I've got Burden of the Destroyer. We don't really care about the range on our firearms because we're just using the mod. And I mean, you can lob that arrow actually from pretty far away, I think. I'm not sure there's an upper limit on how far it can go. There probably is, but yeah, I mean, we hit that from way over there, right? So we don't care about the firearm range because we're not shooting the bow, right? So Burden of the Destroyer was just a natural pick. 15% more damage across the board and for minions. But in the past, I was running Shard Banded Ring for more mod damage. I was running the, what do you call it? Blasting Cap, because this does count for explosive damage. So there are some options you can go in there for more damage. There it is, Sagittarius. It does Starfall. The bow does, the magic arrow shot does do some damage, but it's not a lot. It's nothing to really, like, if it did nothing as opposed to what it does now, I probably wouldn't even notice, to be honest. But yeah, it lasts for 12.24 seconds, and that's because we've got how much mod duration going on here? 104% extra mod duration. So it lasts for a while. There's a lot of extra time going on in here, because what's it, baseline is only like 6 seconds, 5 seconds. My handgun, it's kind of not important. I'd been trading out a number of different things to try just different stuff. Because I was doing the minions, I threw on Root Lash. However, one of the things to note with Starfall is you want to keep them in the area. So using something like the Song of Aether to slow a zone and then keep them locked down in that zone is pretty nice. Kind of the same thing with time lapse. You can freeze everybody in place for a second and then line up your Starfall shot, and after it breaks them out, then they're all slowed from there. So you could do some combos like that. Another thing you could do as well is run the time wave mutator, so that when you use a mod, it's going to slow everybody. And I mean, a 10-meter range is pretty good. That's a pretty sizable space. And so you can use that to slow them down when you drop in the Starfall. Now, bad thing is you're going to lose out on some of that mod power generation, because this gives you 20% back, and then the damage is going to generate mod power. So, you know, you lose out on that part. But it can be pretty satisfying to lock guys in. As for my traits, with us focusing in on the duration and size, amplitude, chakra, both of those are really nice to just really enhance those effects. And then maxing out spirit is solid. In the past, I was using the insight trait to give us more mod power per second, but it's not really necessary. It does kind of round out things, specifically when you're dealing with a lot of like just ads or something and you're not constantly hitting the boss. Then in between those mod uses, you're going to charge it up much faster. So it just kind of smooths it out a little bit, but it's definitely not necessary, especially like what I went with the minions. So I have Blood Bond going on and I have Rugged. If I didn't have those trait points put in, I probably would put in stuff into Insight. I would probably put some other points into maybe Triage or, you know, something else. At that point, I've got more flexibility with stuff. And here's my fragment things. So health bonus, mod damage, mod duration. Depending on how you feel, you may want to trade out like some of those. Like you could trade out the health bonus and put in mod generation. So things like mod damage, mod generation, mod duration. Like those would be the top three like picks for the mod itself. But I, of course, always like to have health. And then my prism is just a bunch of mod things. All right, depending on how much you've got going on in there, you're just going to have a better experience, right? It's just extra gravy on top. Let's go ahead and level it up. And I mean, that's pretty much it. If you haven't messed with Sagittarius in a while and you hadn't thought about it, I would recommend it. It's a lot of fun. It just being able to hit big AoE things and then watch it like charge up pretty quickly, especially this situation here where you can just constantly hit a lot of guys at once, or the boss where you're hitting them multiple times. You can get a lot of multiple portals active. I will say this is sort of a minor gripe, and it's not unique to the Sagittarius, but all the bows, well, not even all the bows, really this one and then the Royal Hunting Bow with mods. And it's the animation, dude. Like, what? Minions, stop, you're noisy. So you activate the mod, you do a little drawback animation thing. Okay, that's fine. And then you lob it. Now watch this, you draw back another spectral arrow, and then you draw your actual arrow. It's so clunky. It's really annoying. And it's because of that second draw. I can get over that part right there. Like, that's fine, I guess. But that, why does that happen? And even if you don't have the bow, like, up and sighted, so we activate the mod. There's a little animation there. You lob it. And see how there's still that weird animation there, and it's really obnoxious. And the fact that it doesn't seem any better with Flashcaster is just mind-boggling. And I'm pretty sure I even tried it with the kinetic whatever stone, kinetic cycle stone, to increase the mod casting and duration and stuff, whatever. Mod casting, mod and skills. So let's see. No, see, that's still the same. So is that time, because it's drawing an arrow, so is it somehow tied with like reload speed for the bow? So if I like crank up reload speed, am I gonna see a bigger difference? All right, we put on a bunch of reload speed stuff. Let's stack up the Outcast ring real quick. Like, see how that, I mean, that draws back much faster, right? Okay. That might have been a tiny bit faster. But it really doesn't feel any faster, and it's still doing the whole animation. that animation needs to go away. Like, absolutely. And it's the same when you use it on the Royal Hunting Bow as well. Here's our Royal Hunting Bow. We charge up our Rotted Arrow. We've got an arrow knocked. Big drawback. Shoot. And see, it draws back an arrow and gets ready to do a thing. Swap it out. Let's put on Skewer, right? Knocks a Spectral Arrow. Lob it. And then it does... But see, that one felt a little bit faster, actually, too. So maybe it is different because of the rounds per second. So this is 5.3 as opposed to the Sagittarius, which is a bit slower, a 4.5. But I don't think it also doesn't affect with, like... It also doesn't affect these, right? The different buff ones. Alright, so this is active. It still draws the arrow, but it's still pretty fast, honestly. Interesting. So... Huh. Yeah, I just wish that animation was smoother, would maybe get changed out or something, right? Oh, I guess I could have changed out this for some other reload speed too. Whatever. That's it. Thanks for joining me, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. And till the next one, take care.